I have to start with, where are we on the meltdown of the economy? Is it going to happen or not? I hope it does not. And that somehow we're able to watch and applaud as the people in charge are raising rates just well enough and fast enough to tame inflation without sending us into a recession. Is it even really possible? I guess we're going to find out. Meanwhile, though, Daily Mail has this headline: S&P cuts First Republic to junk status, sends the New York Stock Exchange into a frenzy. America's big four banks are dropping a little bit in share price. Wells Fargo down 4.8%. Citigroup down 4.9%. Credit Suisse is looking like it's in some real trouble. 30%, massive Swiss bank is looking rough right now. 30% down, all in the wake of the SVB collapse. So has this all been handled? No. Do we know what's going to happen? No, we do not. But there are some people out there who tend to be very prescient and have been right when it counts about the economy, because they have to make money, because they have shareholders or investors, in the case of hedge funds, who expect there to be the upside of being right, not the downside of, oh, I almost got it right, and then losing people money. Carl Icahn, he is a very famous financial figure. He's out there telling everybody he's a financier. Man, that would be cool. That's like the next level, Financier is like being called a mogul. You're a Hollywood mogul, you're a big deal. If you're a financier, because it's French, it's fancy, Carl Icahn says the system is breaking down and we got a big problem. Play 3.
That our system is breaking down and that we absolutely have a major problem in our economy today. And I'm not going to opine on whether or not you bail out a bank or something like that. But you can't have the country feeling that it doesn't matter if they save. It doesn't matter because they can spend all the money they want. You can do whatever you want because the government will bail you out.
So we got a couple of problems here that have not been solved by the actions on the banks. And again, I'm focusing in on this. There's other things we're going to get to today. We're going to make sure that every day you're here, you're getting all the most important news, of course. But this affects everything else. I mean, this is the one issue right now that is entirely short of nuclear war breaking out with Russia. This is the thing that you can't avoid, no matter who you are, where you are in this country, or really anywhere in the world, the possibility of a major catastrophe in the U.S. economy. Now, I don't think it would be the end of the U.S. economy. I'm not a catastrophist overall, but what does it look like if you see who knows, actually, I was going to say if you were to see a massive drop in the stock market, or are we just going to see inflation continue until we get to a point of real stagflation where you have rising inflation? We've had this before, right? Rising inflation and low or negative GDP growth and high unemployment. Stagflation is ugly. Stagflation grinds away at the day-to-day sense you have that you can get ahead and things are going to get better. It almost forces the entirety of everybody involved in the U.S. economy into a perpetual bad mood and even some despondency. People are going to be really concerned. Stagflation stinks. Persistently high inflation with high unemployment and a stagnant demand for within a country's economy. So low growth, low productivity, high inflation. And what you see here is, how can we try to avoid, as I've said, the bill coming due? Let's just do a quick recap. And there were some of us who were warning about this all along. This ties directly to our COVID response, directly to the Biden administration's reckless spending as well. I know the COVID response started under Trump. There was way too much money spent. We should never have locked down the whole PPP program. Think about this. If you could just pay workers to stay home, send them money with no attendant productivity, not making the products, not providing the services, why wouldn't we just do that all the time? Obviously, there is cause and effect here. You squeeze the balloon at one side and the air gets pushed to another. Something happened when we were doing this, and it took a while for the bill to come due, but that's where we are right now. And you have these banks, the whole banking system based on lending and being able to get back a percentage, that has effectively, by the very low interest rates pushed by the Fed, that has been minimized at best. So what have they been doing? Where have they been going? And where are we going to look next to find that there's some massive unforeseen liability that creates a cascading financial hole that brings down a whole lot of other stuff around it? Inflation itself, by the way, is enough to do tremendous damage. It has been doing damage. We're all paying right now. The dollars that you have worked for that have been sitting in your bank account for the last, however many years now. But the dollars that you have been working for every month are worth less sitting in your bank account, as you know. So saving is punished. Spending is rewarded. That's a really bad system. You add on top of that, speculation is rewarded for the banks. And now we know we are in a de facto backstopping of all accounts held in all U.S. banks. That is the message that has been sent. No one will say otherwise. Because if some other bank were to fail, and it could very well happen in the days and weeks ahead, the same argument's going to be made. Oh my gosh, we have to get bailed out. The depositors, it's not their fault. Well, whose fault is it? This is what you really start to get to. And I don't mean that it is the depositor's fault, but someone's got to be held at fault. If they're not, you know what happens? More of this. And everybody who sees this for what it is understands that the likely outcome is more recklessness until people who do it feel pain. And unfortunately, as we all know from 2008, the most reckless people didn't really feel very much pain at all. The banks that were on the precipice of destroying the entire global economy, creating a massive credit freeze, and God knows what would have followed that. But back to inflation. Again, Carl Icahn, financier, telling everybody that if you look at history, inflation has been the destruction of many societies. Play 4.
Yeah, I don't think it's the last few days necessarily. I think we have some major problems in our economy. I think Powell really has to raise interest rates sooner or later. I can't talk about next week or even next month, but inflation is the worst thing an economy can have, and I think people underrate that. If you look in history, every hegemony has been destroyed by inflation, or almost everyone. I mean, just go back to Rome.
Here's what ends up happening. The central government, the bureaucracy becomes too powerful, is unaccountable, and the people who think that they're dealing with a representative government, I'm talking about now whether it's a republic or some form of democratic rule, it just turns into an arms race for who spends the money better, because you can't win against the other side. You can't win saying there is no Santa Claus. So now everybody has to say there is a Santa Claus. Everybody has to promise the free lunch. What does that look like? I think it looks like $31 trillion in debt, give or take. The Republican Party right now, no one's talking about this. But the truth is, you cannot even get elected within the Republican Party, at least this is the belief, talking about any kind of entitlement reform, raising the retirement age, anything like that. Totally, that people don't want to hear it, totally opposed to it. Okay, well, so now we're just on the train to see how far it goes and where it ends. That's it. Because there's no political will to take the medicine. Nobody wants to hear that this is all going to come to a stop at some point. So how do you stay in power? How do you beat the other guy? Well, you say, oh, it's just the rich that are causing the problems. It's just the oppressors in our society that are the issue here. We have endless money to pay for everything. We have modern monetary theory we can apply. And we've basically been running an experiment in modern monetary theory. We just don't call it that. Because when you're spending $6 trillion during COVID to tell people not to work, and then you're wondering what's going to happen, then Biden comes in and spends another $2 trillion and then another couple trillion on top of that and wanted to spend $5 trillion. What do we think was going to happen here? You know, when Icahn discusses inflation, this is a tax on all of us. Everyone has to understand that. This is especially for those who are who do not have assets, because assets tend to get inflated during these bubble periods. So, you know, if you own a lot of stock, if you own a lot of real estate, you know, you do fine and you're already wealthy. So you can afford it. You know who can afford the tax of inflation the least? People that are just trying to make ends meet. But the moment that you try to say, hold on a second, we have to stop the spending from the government, it's too much. It's causing the inflation that is destroying your life savings and making it harder for you to make ends meet. You know what ends up happening? The demagogues win. They say, see, they're just in the pocket of the fat cats. And whatever happened to the Tea Party? Remember that? We had this whole movement, a massive grassroots movement that delivered a stunning victory in the House in 2010. It was all about debt and spending. Now we sit here and we say, maybe the people in charge can fix it. Maybe Powell can turn a circle into a square. Maybe he can, you know, turn lead into gold. The old alchemy example. I think the answer is obviously no, he can't. So everyone's just going to sit and wait and wonder as we grind slowly toward a recession how we got into this place when really we've known all along. And we can either hold the people in charge accountable and come up with new ways of thinking and new approaches, or we just keep running through the same cycle. And I'm of the mind that we're probably just going to do that. We just hope that it's not that bad this time. Biden's in charge, everybody. How does that make you feel? The Biden team is handling this.